recorded in his word. I just wanted y'all to know that. Third chapter. I have a word from the Lord for you.
Amen.
We're going to start in the second verse. And we're going to read a little bit. Is that all right?
Yeah.
All right. And if you got it, say amen.
Amen.
The Bible reads like this. It says, "And the angel of the Lord appeared unto him in a flame of fire out of the midst of a bush. And he looked, and behold, the bush burned with fire, but the bush was not consumed." And then Moses said, "I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the bush is not burned." And when the Lord saw that he had turned aside to see, God called out to him in the midst of the bush and said, "Moses, Moses." I want you right there as you're reading, if you have a pen, which you should, I want you to circle that area right there where it says Moses and Moses. You see that? Moses, Moses. All right, circle that right there. That's going to mean something to you. And he said, "Here am I." And he said, "Draw not nigh hither. Put off thy shoes from off thy feet, for the place where thou standest is holy ground." Moreover, he said, "I am the God of your father, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, the God of Jacob." And Moses hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon God. And the Lord said, "I have surely seen the affliction of my people which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters, and I know their sorrows. And I have come down to deliver them from the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them out of the land unto a good land, and a large, watch this, and a large unto a land flowing with milk and honey. The place of the Canaanites and the Hittites, and the place of the Amorites and the Pizarites, and the Hivites and the Jebusites. And therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Israel is come up to me. And I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Egyptians oppressed them. Come now, therefore, and I will send thee unto Pharaoh, that thou mayest go, that thou mayest bring forth my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt. And Moses said unto God, "Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt?" And he said, "Certainly I will be with thee, and this shall be a token unto thee, that I have sent thee, when thou hast brought forth the people out of Egypt. Ye shall serve God upon this mountain." And Moses said unto God, "But behold, when I come unto the children of Israel, and shall say unto them, The God of your fathers have sent me unto you, they shall say to me, What is his name? And what shall I say unto them? And God said unto Moses, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shalt thou say unto the children of Israel, I am, have sent me unto you. If you would look at your neighbor, say neighbor.
Neighbor.
The topic of today's discussion is, I done had enough. You may be seated in the presence of God. Now listen, I need you to really pay close attention to this text, because I'm going to give you some intricate notes, and I'm going to share something that I believe God gave me to tell you. All right? So look at your neighbor already and elbow him real quick and tell him, wake up. Now, this is a very important text. Why? Because this gives the story of the transition from Moses being the shepherd boy to Moses becoming the deliverer. This is a very important text because this shows the transition that we make from being one who has been redeemed to becoming one who will now redeem others. The text is extremely clear in this context, but looking at the second verse, it says that an angel of the Lord appeared unto him. An angel was in the burning bush. Can I even give you the proper context here? The angel, his presence, caused the bush to appear as though it was burning. the fiery presence of God. Why is that important to you and I? Because in Hebrews it talks about our God is a consuming fire. The appearance of the bush seemed like it was on fire. However, the angel's presence was so fiery that it seemed as though it was engulfing, but it did not consume the very bush. But then watch this. Moses said, I will now turn aside. This is important, and this is my first point I need you to identify. Have you made the physical action, the physical commitment to actually turn from your way to see what God is up to? Have you actually made the transition? See, what has happened to many people who have been in church any amount of time is that they have gotten used to a formula or a fashion, or they have finally identified who God is. Or let me go a little deeper. They have finally been able to tell the great El Shaddai exactly how he should and shouldn't operate. That's why you hear interesting statements out of these particular folk. They are good at saying, this is God, and that is not God. Or surely God is a part of this, and surely God is not a part of that. Simply because of their education has formed their opinion of the appearance of God. How do you know that? Look at the text. If you look at the way that Moses is writing, because he's writing about himself, he's the writer of Exodus, and he's writing about himself and his experience, and he said, it seemed as though that the bush was on fire. And the reason why he said that, because he's never experienced God manifesting in fire before. Some of us have already discounted or missed or second-guessed this appearance of God because you never experienced God on this level before. That's why some of us are afraid of going to the next thing or the next place in God, because we just got comfortable with the way God seemed to always have moved. There used to be a time now where we were happy just coming and being a church member. You were just happy coming, and you thought you really were doing something because you made it there on Sunday morning. And now all of a sudden, God done gave you work to do. God now is calling you from the pew, from the person who has been redeemed, from the person who has experienced firsthand the shed blood of Christ, to now be the one who will bring others to that same reality.
Amen.
Can I give you a revelation? That it is not the gift of the evangelism. It's not a gift of evangelism, nor the gift of the call of an evangelist for those who are called to bring others to Christ. It is the call of every blood-bought, committed believer to bring others to that same reality.
Amen.
Amen. I know you don't want to say amen, because that might mean you might get the work to do. I understand, but let me tell you now, God has already called you. Let me give you a convicting statement that God asked me this week. How many people have you led to Him this week? How many people specifically have you taken the time to say, listen, I know you live in Ratchet. You may be shacking. I was listening to, I got a story. I was listening to Lattimore, and he was talking about Let's Straighten It Out. I listened to that this week. And he said, I don't care if you're married, single, engaged, divorced, or shacking. You always going to have a point in your life where you need to straighten something out. That's what he was saying. So I'm telling you, it doesn't matter how the people are that are around you, even though I know in our minds sometimes we say that these folk aren't worthy of God's grace. I know we don't say it out loud, but we say, I can't put up with them. I know God can't do nothing with them. I know that person right there. And you know, I can't say this person's name, but I got an experience that I remember. This person would always compare themselves to others. They would always say, so they'd say like, well, listen, I ain't as bad as them. So right, so you'll go to the hot part of hell, they'll go to the air-conditioned part of hell, right? That's how it's going to work. The reality is, none of us have any place in the kingdom except for the grace of God. The grace of God is not just unmerited favor, but the grace of God is the ability to act and to do with God's support. The reason why you got that position was not because of favor. You got that position because God strategically empowered you and then touched others simultaneously. It was not just God making everybody like you and not seeing how messed up you were. But at the same time, it was God empowering you to get in position to receive something that you couldn't earn on your own. That's grace. Because we come to him by mercy. Moses got to that bush by mercy. Mercy was the reality that you were messed up and you are not worthy. Matter of fact, you might even contaminate this area. How do you know that? That's why you got to take your little raggedy shoes off. Because where you're about to stand is holy ground. This is important. I want you to identify this notion when he said the place that you stand is holy. It was important because this was a set-apart place that he was moving into. This is why that matters to you. Some of you are moving off of a messy foundation onto a holy, set-apart, uniquely identified place of God, which God will give you access to. Some of you are so used to dealing with conformity, backsliders, and folk in all type of messed up sin. And now God is moving you from that crowd into a place where now you can be properly developed. Did you not know that the presence of God is where you and I are developed? Amen. That's why when we spend time like Moses did, he spent time with God. We don't know, the text isn't clear how long he was in the presence of God. But I promise you this, his dialogue began to change. Look at it, didn't you? He said, look, wait a minute, well, you giving me, you said, you about to get all these folk out of Egypt, right? And then, God, you're going to have me do that. Some of you have gotten that same call. Okay, let me be honest with you. Can I be honest with you? All of you have gotten that same call. And I remember we were in Sunday school, and I was asking them, who has the ability to be the prophet, the one who God will speak through? And one of the classmates said, Cheryl, they said, you, right? I said, no, it's all of us. All of us are called to speak for God. The reason why some of us don't embrace the calling, just like in Moses' situation, his first thing was in his mind that his understanding or his knowledge of himself disqualified him from being used in any great capacity. Some of you are in that same scenario where you don't believe that God can do anything significant through you because you think your history is too bad to produce a positive future. That's why some folks just done gave up on themselves. You done gave up on that possible hope. You done gave up that God could actually use you. Some of you are the only ones in your family that hear from God or trust God enough. How can God redeem your cousins unless you open your mouth? Let me say it to you like this. It's not enough that you're the only one living right. It's not enough that you got your first class ticket to heaven. Let me even go a little deeper. It doesn't give you the right to stay at the airport and wait for Jesus to come back. You got to get off your do-nothing tail. Is that what you said? Get off your do-nothing stool. And get active and ask God, what have you called me to do? Watch this, bro, Gary. You're going to like this. Moses, I'm still in the text. And he did something very significant that really blessed me. Moses said, who am I? I'm not worthy. I'm not the one who can do it. If you look at the context in which he said it, I want you to go to that verse real quick, because I want you to see something specifically. Because I want to know, has anybody ever said something like this? He said, who am I that I should go to Pharaoh, that I should bring forth the children of Israel out of Egypt? Now this is interesting because he identified two things. He said, who am I to go back and talk to the old boss, the old taskmaster that I was under? And also he identified the place in which he came from, which was Egypt. Here, if you're writing notes, you want to write this down about yourself. Are you afraid for God to send you back to what you've been delivered from? Are you afraid for God, if you were struggling with alcohol, are you afraid for God to send you back in the bar and talk to that barkeep who kept you running tab? Are you afraid to talk to that old relationship and speak to them and now give them a different conversation versus what you're doing tonight? Are you afraid to actually approach that old place that held you bound and caused you so much pain? The truth and the true proof of deliverance is that you are able to minister to what you were brought from. Egypt was a powerful place. Look at your neighbor and say, Egypt was a powerful place. It was a powerful place. It was an unbelievable place. It was a place of influence. It would have been considered the modern day United States because of the influence and the reign that it had. However, many of us don't realize that some of us, our Egypt, is still in existence today. Some of us are still in bondage and not even realizing it. Some of us are still enslaved to systems that have caused us to move away from believing that God could cause us to do anything better. One of the greatest systems of Egypt is assistance, right? Getting assistance from people, needing to borrow, beg, and steal. Other forms of Egypt could be your commitment to your job simply because this is all you've ever known, even though God has given you dreams. Saturday we were talking at Epic, and I was sharing with them that you must be a dreamer. You have to be a dreamer. Moses was scared. Point blank period. He was scared because he said, "Listen, you don't know how I left. You know, I didn't just give my 2 weeks notice and said, listen, I'm gonna leave. And I don't need this no more." Not only did he leave, but he killed one of them people. And he said, "Listen, I know for a fact, Brother Bobby, if these jokers see me coming, they ain't gonna wait for me to get close to them. They gonna hit me one of those good old arrows. They gonna see us. There you go, right there. Go arrows." His mind was already prepared for failure. Some of you are afraid of what God is showing you because you think you are incompetent to accomplish it. Some of you are afraid to do anything significant for God outside of your comfort zone simply because, truth be told, you don't want to. Or you don't feel like it. What would you do if God called you like he did Moses and said, "Sandy, Sandy, 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 it's 3:30 in the morning. Cheryl needs you to pray for her." Sandy probably like, "All right," roll over from one pillow to the other. "Lord, you know my heart, and you know where she's going." Then you're, "Sandy, Sandy, get out of your bed, get into your car, and go pray for her." Now, as we've heard before, some people around would be like, "Well, that's got to be Satan. God knows how important this bed is to me." But that seems simple enough. But what if God calls us to another level and says, "Your brother is sick and will not get better unless you go to them and pray specifically for them and lay hands on them until they recover." I was teaching them today in Sunday school. I was telling them that salvation is not just not going to hell anymore. Salvation is not just being free from sin. That is not just salvation. That is a minimal viewpoint of salvation. Salvation is an evolving reality. You go from being saved from hell, death, and the grave, then going to a place where now you're ready to be used of God. So there's a maturity of salvation. And so what it took for Moses in this context, he had to first be delivered and then move to a place where he was willing to be matured. The reason why our church does what it does right now is because this is our level of maturity. But when we mature to a deeper place in God, we can be trusted with more responsibility. Some of us are not trustworthy with millions of dollars. Thus, God has not given you millions of dollars. Your best income has never gotten over 5 figures because of your level of commitment and maturity. But imagine if God could trust you and say to you, Ronnie, I'm going to give you $56 million to start the new water filtration system in Flint. Could God trust you with that call? Could God speak to you, Fallon, and tell you, I'm going to send 5,000 young people to this ministry to be under your tutelage? And they're going to be just like you. Would that be good to have $5,000 around here?
Yeah.
She says yes. Can God trust us?